Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Burning Platform. It's a real pleasure to have Hyther Nizam today. He represents Zoho in the Middle East, mostly based in Dubai, though he travels all the time. Hyther, thank you for joining me. I know it's late in your time, but look forward to talking to you. Spend a couple of minutes talking about yourself, how your background in Zoho, and then talk about Dubai and everything else.
Sure. First, thanks for having me here, Vinnie. Thank you. Just a quick intro about myself. So I head one of the product division at Zoho, which includes a low-code platform Zoho Creator, the spreadsheets, Zoho Sheet, Zoho Commerce, marketing automation products, farm survey, and few more products. And apart from handling the products, I also head the Middle East and Africa operations at Zoho. And today, as I speak, we have crossed 23 years, and this is the 24th year I'm stepping into at Zoho.
Wow. So, this is fascinating. You have two such different portfolios, right? You've got a geographic responsibility. You've also got a product responsibility. How do you do that? Does that mean coming back to Chennai quite often, or can you do it remotely? Tell us how you balance the two very different disciplines you manage.
Sure. So at the heart, I'm a product guy. So I am a technology guy. Predominantly, I was a director of technology, handling the tech piece at Zoho. And in fact, I've contributed to some of the JSRs, Java specifications request, representing Zoho at that point of time in early 2000s. So I'm a hardcore tech guy and then a product guy. And then, last 3-4 years, when Hyther Nizam, our CEO, he introduced the strategy of transnational localism, what he called it as rooted and being connected, right? Where you want to send senior people to different markets so that we take the culture and spread and hire people accordingly and make sure we bring that customer experience in the local markets. So I have been given additional responsibility of handling the Middle East and Africa market. And I said, okay, yeah, fine, let me do it, right? So I handled tens of products. And apart from that, so now last 3-4 years, I travel and I've set up different offices in different countries. Now we have office in UAE, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Egypt, and we are setting up an office in Nigeria and Kenya in this quarter. So Middle East and Africa has 75 countries. Right, so we have picked up 10 countries and we are setting up offices, and every year we are going to add more offices, entities and local officers, being people hired locally. And that's my responsibility. And part of that responsibility, of course, I have to travel to different countries, right? So, and the pandemic has never stopped us. In fact, even last year, I traveled to 3-4 countries. We had Zoho user conference in another part of the world called Africa, right, which has not been so much shut down, right? We had a Zoho event in Cairo, in South Africa. In fact, when Omicron was announced, I was in South Africa finishing our Cape Town Zoho right? Oh, wow. I was in the airport.
Right? I'm just amazed you still have, you don't have any white hair for the amount of travel you do. Hi there. So I'd interviewed Raju, your colleague, Raju, about secondary and tertiary towns, right? Zoho tends to like to go into not the major cities. Is that true in your part of the world also? Are you looking for secondary places, or how do you geographically manage that?
Yeah, so I think that strategy I'm taking in Africa, where it doesn't make no difference when I'm going to set up an office in city or outskirts in Africa. Anyway, these are like third world places, third world cities, where even the cities have internet problem and a lot of other infrastructure problems. So only thing stopping us is the infrastructure problem. You go very interior in Africa, you don't get an internet, right? And that is a fundamental backbone for our business. So outside that, if we are getting a good infrastructure, internet, I think the first choice is going to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. If there's no infrastructure available, then we fall back. Tier 1 city is a fallback option for us. So that strategy of being in remote villages, remote places holds good for my region in Middle East and Africa.
So, Zoho, clearly the bigger markets are Europe and US and so on. You have a very, very important, fast-growing market. But how is it different? How do you see the markets evolving differently? Because there must be significant differences, right? I mean, when you go into Nigeria, when you go into UAE, it's very different than trying to go into Belgium or US state. So tell me some of the differences you encounter in that part of the world.
Yeah, huge difference. Because I have experience, I talk from my experience. I have experience handling customers in US or Europe, all the Western countries. There's huge difference. I would put it in probably 3-4 buckets. I think the first important difference is, especially in mid-market enterprises, they expect very high touch experience. Of course, any enterprise is high touch, but this is way higher than what we see at US customers, right? What that does mean is, every touch point, right, from sales to pre-sales to solution consulting to account management to support, they expect quick turnaround and they expect local people, right? And that's where our strategy of transnational localism, right, where we have local offices in every country and we hire local people for every department, custom facing functions, really works really well for us. So they want, if they pick up the phone, someone has to answer. And if they ask people to come and visit the site, people should go and visit the site. I mean, in US, it's not very common, right? Only when you have a very serious escalation, we have people visiting the customer site. But this is very common. This is not an exception. This is a common. This is the norm, right? So I think the whole transnational localism is really working well for us, and we are able to serve this high touch experience, and we see that in our growth. For example, in last 4 years, before 4 years, when I took over this Middle East operation, in 4 years we have grown 5x, right? And our CAGR is more than 50% in the whole Middle East and Africa. So that's rewarding, but the important thing is it's a high touch experience market. And second is, English speaking countries is far easier, but here you have multiple languages, right? You have Hebrew, you have Arabic, you have multiple languages. And top of that, those languages RTL, right, to left, right? So it's not easy to support an RTL language in the product, right? The whole user interface, the whole UX has to be changed in the product, right? And we have done that. And Zoho, on top of it, Zoho provides 50 applications. So all those applications to support RTL for us to sell Zoho One in those markets, right? And so, which means, you need to support the local languages, and we need to have local people who can talk those local languages. For example, in Saudi, you need to have native Arabic speakers, and you have different dialects of Arabic, and you need to have Saudi dialect, right? There's a Lebanese dialect, there's other Arabic dialects, and which Saudi customers would prefer Saudi dialect, right? Which means you need to have local Arabic speaking person. And it doesn't stop at product, websites, all the content, YouTube videos, everything has to be localized, right? It's a massive effort, but that's worth it. So in fact, interestingly, in Nigeria, we have a lot of people from Nigeria studying in India. So the strategy I took is, I picked up people in Nigerians studying in Indian universities. I brought them to Chennai, and then we trained in Chennai. And we know that, okay, this guy is good in technically and in terms of all the other personality wise. And then we send them back to Nigeria. And that's how we have a person heading the office. And that guy is already into the culture, he's already knows about Zoho, and he started hiring people in Nigeria. Otherwise, getting a good resource and talent in Nigeria itself is that's why you don't see a lot of global players, becoming really market leader in these markets. But Zoho, we want to be the local player. We want to be as if we are a Saudi-based company, local company, pretty much set up the operation in Saudi, and the Saudi customer shouldn't feel that it is it's not a Saudi entity, right? So that's a kind of model. So that's the second one, language. Third one is pricing. We are serving a lot of third world nations, right? It's a very price sensitive. and
Right.
which means we have to subsidize our pricing. And we have done that. We have pricing subsidized in all the African market and some of the Middle East countries as well. And we let customers to pay in the local currency. In Nigeria, you took an example of Nigeria. A Nigerian customer can pay in Naira, right? And which is a subsidized cost because they have a lot of US, currency conversion fluctuations, right? So, which means they cannot afford to pay in US dollars, and they have US dollars currency reserves in the country, right? So we need to provide the local currency, which means you need to have local payment gateway integrations, right? They have to pay it in local payment gateways, and which means you need to have local payroll support. So all this, right, is really a challenge, and that's I would say like third reason,
So,
pricing.
so you're prompting two questions for me. So one, as you said,
Sure.
you're in 10 countries out of 75 in that region.
Yes.
If you can, how do you decide how to enter a new market? And then the second question then is, what does it take for you to go back and lobby with Sridhar and say, Sridhar, for me to enter this market, I will need to have these 3 features. I'm sure you have to lobby for your regions as part of the product development release cycle that you manage.
Yes, yes. So I think to answer your first question on how we choose markets, we choose based on basically the market size and of course the GDP. And in Middle East, you have 3 major markets: UAE, Saudi, and Israel, right? And in Africa, we have taken a hub and spoke model, right? Where we have North Africa, South Africa, and then you have West and East Africa. So North Africa, Egypt, Cairo would be the hub. In South Africa, we have Joburg or Cape Town. We have office now in Cape Town. We are going to set up in Joburg. And then we have West Africa, we have Nigeria, and East Africa, Kenya. And then you have spoke offices in around these countries. So these are major markets. In fact, this is how we have set up. We have picked 7, 8 countries, and then you build hub offices around these major spoke offices around these hubs, right? So that's how we have chosen based on the size of the market, based on the maturity of the market, and based on the GDP of the market, right? And coming to your next question of lobbying, right? So there's an internal lobbying and there's an external lobbying, right? So internally, as you said, rightly said, we lobby, basically take the example of Naira. If I want to support Naira currency, I need to have local Nigerian payment gateway supported in my Zoho Finance products. That's the backbone for our collecting payments. So our finance products has to support this Nigerian entity, and that product team, they see globally, right? For them, Nigeria is probably not their primary priority. They would be focused on other Western countries. So I didn't have to do internal lobbying. I have to really make sure show the promising market and opportunity, and I have to do an internal selling, right, to the internal stakeholders. And Sridhar definitely, if he buys it, and then he'll be my champion to push the agenda inside to the product teams, right? And I also wear the product hat, right? If some other region product manager come to me for Zoho Creator, hey, can you just add this feature for my region, right, in your product? I'm going to ask the same questions. So I know what what questions to these guys would be asking internally, and I will be ready with them. And externally, right? These every market is completely different. For example, in UAE, you would have heard the news that Dubai is the first government going paperless. A couple of months back, they had a huge news, and Zoho was part of it. In terms of digitizing and making that all the businesses going paperless. So we have partnered with Dubai government, Dubai Economy and Tourism, where we say like, hey, whenever a new business is set up in Dubai, you take Zoho One free, and they could use it for 1 year, right? And government is promoting us. So this is the sole authority which issues trade license. And as part of the trade license, we are the only vendor being featured there, saying government is pushing, hey, once you set up business, take Zoho One, use it for free. So that's a kind of a lobbying we have to do externally. No, we have to work with the government on some of the community services during this COVID time. During the, one of the government is asking us to set up a Zoho schools, right? Our where we take young people from high schools and train them and incubate them and then hire them, right? 10-15% of our workforce is Zoho school kids, right? Government want to really, some of the government want to have Zoho school set up in their country, and we work with them. So we genuinely work with them in terms of how we can help their businesses, help their communities, help their students, and that's a rewarding, and it really helps us in terms of spreading our brand, and government is promoting our brands, and that really helps in long term.
Hyther, next time you go lobby for a major feature within Zoho, I would love to shadow you. I'd love to watch you do the sales process internally.
Of course. Please join me. Yeah.
You mentioned the pandemic, right? Tell me how that has affected, your operations, how you've navigated that, because you travel so much, right? So give us a little glimpse on how you managed in the last 18 months, 24 months.
No, it's a tough life, I think hopefully it is on our back now. I think the Middle East market was huge affected for us, but it didn't show up in our numbers. UAE market in 2020, more than a third of our businesses went out of business. The expats, they returned to their countries, and which means there's a huge growth to the market and vendors like us, right? And 1/3 of the business is going out of business is huge. And coincidentally, government was really proactive, and they opened up the borders. They let business to run, and then they brought back the business on track. And it also differs from country to country. Saudi, even now, they haven't really opened the borders. In fact, next month we are supposed to have our Zoho user conference in Saudi. We are canceling it. Last week we decided we canceled it because we couldn't get the visas on time for speakers. But Africa, on the other hand, right, where the borders were open. Last year we had our user conference in Egypt and even in South Africa. So every country is completely different because we have 75 countries in this market. But I think during this pandemic, everyone has really tasted, every business has tasted the whole cloud software, the whole software service by way of this kind of tools like Zoom or web conferencing or whatnot, right? So now that is going to, push a very exponential growth, especially for vendors like us. The businesses are going to go digital. They have already tasted digital. They want to have digital transformations. People who are using paper and pen and spreadsheets want to really take that business, make it more productive. And since now they have tasted, it's proven, and they're going to really automate slowly and steadily. They're going to automate the processes. And vendors like Zoho, there's a great opportunity, especially in the third world nations like African countries. We are going to see, we already seeing, in fact, the whole Middle East and Africa, we finished second next to India in terms of 2021 growth, right? We had more than 50% growth, whole Middle East and Africa region. Saudi had triple-digit growth, right? The Saudi Arabia market. Some of the African country, Nigeria, Kenya had, 70-80% growth. I think this is going to explode in coming years. Once the whole COVID restrictions are gone, I think businesses are going to really jump on and going to automate their processes. That's an opportunity for us.
Hyther, I could spend an hour more with you because I spent 3 years in Saudi Arabia in the 80s. So I've been to many of the countries you're talking about. Love to keep talking.